Playbook for Performance, the official podcast of Shauna Corden, the Joan of Arc for corporate healing and performance. Join the quest to make work fun again by preparing leadership for engaging workplaces. And now, your host.
Hello and welcome, friends. I'm Shauna Corden, and I'm glad to have you here on the Playbook for Performance podcast. Our mission is to make work fun again by building better leaders. Now, last week we talked about creating a new post-COVID etiquette for the office and the Straw Dog tool, all in service of building a self-aware leader. What means did you put in place to bolster your sense of awareness? If you have additional tools you'd like to suggest, email us and we can add them to the epilogue by dropping a note to podcast@shaunacorden.com. Now on to today. In keeping up with our theme of the self-aware leader, I want to talk about compassion, starting with curiosity. First, let's define compassion versus some of its relatives, empathy or sympathy. Now, all of these terms suggest that we can share in our colleagues' or our employees' feelings. It's usually used in reference to disappointment, sorrow, or distress, and imagining what it must be like to be them. And that's the similarity. Now, empathy and sympathy go the additional step of feeling of what they're feeling, that vicarious participation. I like to use the analogy often used in recovery about seeing a hole and going into it. Empathy and sympathy suggest we climb into the hole with our colleague, see what it must be like to be inside the hole looking up. As a coach, I'm really aiming for compassion. I really didn't get this distinction between empathy and compassion until I trained with the late Judith Glaser, the author of Conversational Intelligence. The difference being is that compassion, I'm still sharing in my colleague or my client's feelings, but I'm not getting in the hole with them. Someone has to stay out of the hole to lend aid to get them out, and I am playing that role, or I am that person. The other relative term that stays out of the hole is pity, but pity comes from a place of condescension. It's I would never go down the street that had that hole. Too bad for you. Pity is an emotion that really separates the coach and client or colleagues from one another. It doesn't serve because it suggests this superior-subordinate relationship. So now that we've defined compassion, it's feeling the feelings but staying out of the hole, and that we intend to stay out of the hole in order to aid. How do we achieve that? Well, we start with curiosity. Imagine a continuum running from right to left. If the far right is curiosity, the far left would be judgment. And we really have to suspend our judgment. And I find the best way from a neuroscience perspective is starting with, I wonder. Begin to imagine, what are they feeling? What are they facing? What are the emotions they're experiencing? What seems rational? Yet what is wildly emotional? How can they achieve balance? Or how can I best partner to create that magical ladder or that rope to help them climb out of this hole? Or does it serve them to understand all the facets of this hole before exiting? Our whole society is wired for doing. What does it aid them to just be? We listen. Letting people think out loud creates clarity. It places emotions, objects, decisions all into place and grounds them. It allows them to breathe more deeply, get more oxygen, think more clearly, and separate themselves from others' desires. Be silent. And then ask, what else? Let them continue. Again, ask, what else? Until everything has been exhausted. And then, instead of inserting our own opinions, ask, what have you learned? As compassionate colleagues, we give them safety, time, and space. We may be a conduit for a way out of the hole they find themselves in. So how does this play into the self-aware leader? The self-aware leader is compassionate. And by being curious, we can learn where our colleagues or our staff members are coming from. What else is on their plate besides work assignments? We can be compassionate for the colleague to know we are listening. We understand what they may be feeling. We wish for their suffering or whatever it may be, in whatever form it might take, to lessen or abate. Some of you may think compassion isn't professional, that we should keep work. If you feel that your staff are not people, then suspend all expectations of them doing anything but widget work. What a robot could accomplish is all you'll get. They'll meet the responsibility, but they won't exceed. They'll keep strict hours, and they'll never go out of their way for you because you haven't gone out of your way for them. The new self-aware leader knows the impact of his actions on others and seeks to understand what her staff is going through. She creates safety and shows compassion, stays out of the hole to assist, but gets curious so he never strays into that condescension of pity, because pity separates and is unsafe for the employee. Do you work with a leader who needs greater self-awareness, training on compassion, and curiosity? They're not alone. It's the number one area that HR leaders seek out a coach. I work with clients one-on-one to increase their awareness and build trust between themselves and others. Set up some time to discuss your leader by emailing shauna@shaunacorden.com. So this brings us to our tool of the week. Evaluating which sharing feelings you're engaging in when others present challenges. So, number one, are you staying out of the hole? If so, then we know that you're in the place of either compassion or pity. Number two, are you judging them for getting in the hole? If so, then you're in a place of pity, separating yourself and not aiding, so start getting curious. Number three, are you finding yourself worrying and in the hole with them? Then you're practicing empathy or sympathy. How can you share in their feelings but still be clear-headed and aid their exit from the hole? Seek to be of assistance, be curious, listen, make them safe. So here's your field work, because coaching without action isn't coaching, it's just entertainment. For 5 minutes, take a glance at your calendar over the last couple weeks. Look at your interactions and brainstorm. Which of the following situations are you facing on a regular basis? Do people come to you for a listening ear? Do people dump problems in your lap? Are you a safe space? Which ones happen more frequently? Which are you likely to fall into an unhelpful space by absorbing their pain? Practice boundaries and skills to keep you curious and not go in the hole. Make a note for all those challenging situations in your calendar that are upcoming to be intentional about what skills you'll practice. Now, each week in the podcast, I'd like to highlight an organization or a leader doing it well, or from a listener, and one that had a wobble. And I've heard quite a bit over the last couple weeks. And if you'd like to nominate your organization, please email me at podcast@shaunacorden.com. So my applause goes to those organizations who practiced a lot more compassion regarding the challenges of schedules of late, especially since school started during these COVID times. Employees are facing canceled childcare or school closures, and then they really need the flexibility to alter their schedule as needed without a lot of fuss. The burnout level is still high. And remember that definition of burnout is that demands are exceeding capacity. So we can all benefit from additional compassion. And as much as the holidays we look forward to, holidays are still stressful and they can be hard times for people. So even more compassion over the last weeks of the year can be really helpful. My wobble or my bad job by you goes to a few organizations who I've heard loud and clear about, who have not altered their expectations, demanding schedules and all-hour meetings for the sake of beating the competition. And I can promise you, I'm talking to those employees and they're looking for better situations. And one of them is to simply stop working altogether, making our employment challenges in the U.S. even worse. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, give us a rating, tell your friends. If you'd like to hear more about a topic that would make your work fun by improving the leaders in your organization, please drop us a line at podcast@shaunacorden.com. Until next week, take good care.
Thank you for listening to Playbook for Performance. To learn more about Shauna Corden, her consulting programs and tools, please visit her website at shaunacorden.com and follow us on social media at Shauna Corden.